Hello and welcome to Spinster's Library. I'm Claudia. Today I want to talk about some new genres that I'm trying out. This video is inspired by a video that Laura from Paperback Laura did a few months ago, I believe. That video will be linked in the description box, so check it out as well. In that video she was talking about some new genres that she's trying out, so I thought, why not do the same thing? Because I am trying to branch out a little bit in terms of my genre reading. The first genre that I'm branching out into is crime thrillers. It's a very popular genre, and my friend and guest spinster Robin, who you might know from my monthly book hauls, is really into them. So the 3 books that I've got on my TBR for that are all books that she lent me. First up we have 2 Clare Mackintosh novels. The first one is Let Me Lie, and the kind of tagline on there says, "The police say it was suicide, Anna says it was murder. They're both wrong." Which makes me think, if it's not suicide or murder, then the victim's got to be still alive, right? Anyway, the second Clare Mackintosh I've got, also borrowed from Robin, is I See You. This one doesn't have any kind of catchy tagline on it. It does on the back. It says, "You do the same thing every day. You know exactly where you're going. You're not alone." So I've read 1 Clare Mackintosh so far, and it was I Let You Go. And I did quite enjoy that. It's a kind of psychological suspense thriller. And I don't think I'd ever read that sort of book before. So I'm quite excited to try out these other 2 Mackintosh novels and see if I like them as much as the first. And then the other thriller that Robin's lent me is called The Beautiful Dead, and it's by Belinda Bauer. And the tagline on this reads, "He might kill her, she might let him." So yeah, all of these are kind of, well, I expect them to be page-turning, fast-paced, suspenseful kind of books where you really want to get to the bottom of the mystery. And that is completely the opposite to the type of books that I normally like to read, because I normally like to read really slow-paced, introspective character studies. But I'm up for a bit of change, so I'm pretty sure I'll enjoy those types of books as well. The second genre that I'm trying out at the moment is adult fantasy. Maybe I should say fantasy in general, but all of the examples I've got are... well, actually, are they? Let's say I'm trying to branch out into high fantasy. I've got, from my latest charity shop book haul, I've got 4 Terry Pratchett novels. Those are Pyramids, Reaper Man, Maskerade, and then there's Witches Abroad, which is what I'm currently reading. I had read Terry Pratchett before, but only a few books over the last few years, and I did enjoy them. It's not the sort of book that I can read, you know, I can't read one Terry Pratchett after another, because I think the style gets a little bit too much for me if I do that. But I really like reading a Terry Pratchett alongside other books for a bit of kind of fun, light relief, and I do enjoy the stories inside that. So Witches Abroad, the one I'm currently reading, I'm only in the beginning of it, but it feels like it's going to take tropes from fairy tales and subvert them, and I'm really into that. And then the other fantasy book that I'm currently reading is The Crystal Keep by Sheila Gilluly. Oh, I'm not really getting into this. I'm very close to DNFing that, which is entirely my fault, because I realized way too late that this is the second book in the series. The first book of that is called Greenbrier Queen. So I'm just not really getting into this because the author assumes a knowledge of the characters and the world that obviously I don't yet have. The third genre that I'm trying to get into is historical fiction, or more specific, historical romance. And I've got 2 books for that. The first one is The Sixth Wife by Jean Plaidy. My husband got me that at some point, I think, from a charity shop. And again, I believe this one is part of a series, but I don't know how strong the continuity between the books is. And this one is about Catherine Parr, who is one of the wives of Henry VIII. And then the second book that I picked up in my last haul is The White Witch by Elizabeth Goudge. I wasn't sure whether this was going to be a fantasy or a historical romance, but it doesn't say anything about any fantasy elements on the back or the cover. In fact, the line here reads, "A story of love and courage set in the time of Charles I." So I have read some historical fiction before, but again, it's not a genre that I feel confident in, and I don't think I've ever read any historical romance. So we'll see how I like that. Next up is my 500th attempt at getting into poetry. And for that, this time, I have a guide. My guide is Stephen Fry with his book, The Ode Less Travelled. Now, I know that Dane Cobain read this, but I skipped over the part where he talked about it in his videos because no spoilers. I mean, I know it's silly, it's a non-fiction book. What can I be spoiled for? But I really want to go into this completely without knowing what this book is about, and hopefully this is going to take me on a journey through poetry. And the books of poetry that I've got to read with that are some classic poetry. So I've got some Goethe poems in original German. Then a 20th century classic, Bertold Brecht. That's a collection of his poems. I don't think I've ever read any of his poems outside of school. And then some British poetry, which is Rapture by Carol Ann Duffy. And this is I want to say contemporary, but it's a few decades old, I think. It's from 2005. 500th times the charm, maybe. And the last genre that I am hoping to get into is what I'm going to call topical non-fiction. So that's books about current society and current issues. I have been reading a lot of non-fiction this year, but most of that is historical non-fiction or non-fiction about, you know, other sort of general topics. And then a few weeks ago I read Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Reni Eddo-Lodge. And that was just a fantastic book. It's the first non-fiction book I've ever given 5 stars to. So I want to explore more books about current topics, current issues of politics and society and things like that. Because like many of us, I'm feeling a little bit lost in what's happening in the world around me. And it'd be nice to maybe get a little bit more insight. So the main point of this video is that I'm looking for recommendations. If you have any recommendations for any of those genres, then please leave them in the comments down below. I'll be sure to check them out. I'm just so keen to try out some new genres that are very popular with other people, and I want to find out why they are so popular with other people, and hopefully I'll find something that I really love. And maybe you'll find me talking about nothing other than crime thrillers in the future. Who knows? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Bye.